Romans 15. We're going to fast forward to Galatians 4 now. We're going to go actually start off a little bit before Galatians 4, and then we will run all the way down through verse 7. So verse 26 of actually chapter 3 says, "You are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. For all of you who are baptized into Christ have clothed yourself with Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. What I am saying is that as long as the heir is a child, he is no different from a slave, although he owns the whole estate. He is subject to guardians and trustees until the time set by his father. So also when we were children, we were in slavery under the basic principles of the world. But when the time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under law, to redeem those under law, that we might receive full rights as sons. Because you are sons, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a son. And since you are a son, God has made you also an heir." Well, this is an amazing verse because we see the transition that comes when Christ enters this world. We've heard a lot of stories about child actors and their parents going through all of their money, right? I know the Olsen twins from when I was growing up had a famous story like that. I believe Macaulay Culkin had the same thing. All of us are watching Home Alone right now, right? So the actor in that had a very similar thing, I believe, where mom and dad or whoever was in charge of the money ran through a good amount of it. And they don't really, even though the money belongs to them, they can't use it. Somebody has to be over it. Somebody's in charge of essentially running their life. And it's saying that prior to Christ coming into this world, we were subject to the rules that kind of run the world, right? There was, if you do something wrong, if you sin, if you displease God, then there's a punishment for that. The wages of sin is death. But then we see that Christ comes into the world, and as he does that, he then takes on, or he gives over the rights to our sonship. Now, how do we get that? Well, first of all, we start off, and this is why we always read completely around the passage, you are all sons of God through faith in Jesus Christ. You're not all sons of God because you were born. You're not all sons of God because you exist. You're all sons of God because through your faith in Christ Jesus. For all who were baptized into Christ. There's things that we have to do to receive that sonship. But once we do, what happens? Because you are sons, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave. Slave to what? Well, the basic rules that when I sin, the wages of my sin is death. There's a changeover now. And because of Christ coming, and not just coming as a baby, not just coming and teaching, coming and dying on the cross and taking on the punishment of our sin and death and then conquering it by becoming alive 3 days later. That is what gives us the no longer being a slave to sin, being a child